I grew up as the invisible second son in my family. For 34 years of my life, I stood in the shadow of my brother Aaron, the golden child who could do no wrong. While I was ignored, I quietly built a life of success they knew nothing about. I purposely kept my distance and my achievements hidden, creating a wall between their perception and my reality. Then last month, Aaron hired a private investigator who uncovered my secret wealth. Now my parents, who barely acknowledged my existence, are suddenly doing something I never expected. Before I reveal how my family's true colors showed when they discovered my success, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had to prove your worth to people who should have believed in you. From the start. Growing up in a middle-class suburban neighborhood outside Boston, I learned early that there was an unspoken hierarchy in our family. Aaron was first in everything, not just by birth, but by parental decree. As far back as I can remember, our home was a shrine to his achievements. The living room wall displayed Aaron's football trophies, debate medals, and academic certificates. My own accomplishments, mostly in computer science competitions and chess tournaments, were relegated to a small shelf in my bedroom, if they were acknowledged at all. When I was 8 and won my first regional math competition, my parents gave a brief nod before turning the conversation to Aaron's upcoming football game. When I brought home straight, as the response was always, "That is what we expect from you." But when Aaron brought home even a single A, my parents would take him out for a celebration dinner. I was invited along, of course, but only as an audience member to the Aaron show. Our high school years only widened the gap. Aaron was the quarterback, the prom king, the student body president. I was the quiet kid who built computers and created simple games in my spare time. During Aaron's senior year, my parents attended every single football game, cheering loudly from the stands. That same year, when I qualified for the National Programming Championship, they declined to attend because it was the same weekend as Aaron's lesser regional football tournament. "We have to support your brother," my mom explained. "This is important for his college applications." My own college path revealed the starkest contrast in our treatment. Aaron received a partial football scholarship to Princeton, and my parents happily covered the substantial remaining costs. They bought him a car, so he could drive home on weekends, paid for his fraternity dues, and gave him a generous monthly allowance. When it was my turn to apply for college, the narrative changed dramatically. "We've already spent so much on education," my father explained over dinner, not quite meeting my eyes. "Princeton was expensive. You should consider starting at community college to save money." "But I got accepted to MIT with a partial scholarship," I argued, sliding my acceptance letter across the table. My mother glanced at it briefly. "That is still very expensive, Neville. Aaron needed Princeton for his network and future law career. You are good with computers. You can succeed anywhere." So I worked 3 jobs through community college, eventually transferring to a state university with an excellent computer science program. I graduated with honors, but neither of my parents attended the ceremony. Aaron's law school orientation was the same weekend, and that took priority. Family gatherings became exercises in invisibility. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, or birthday celebration centered around Aaron's latest accomplishments. When relatives asked about me as an afterthought, my parents would offer vague responses. "Neville is doing fine with his computer stuff," before steering the conversation back to Aaron's law career trajectory. By 22, I had made a conscious decision to become financially independent and emotionally distant. I accepted a job offer in Seattle, putting 3,000 miles between myself and my family's cold indifference. The physical distance provided relief, but the emotional wounds remained raw. Over the next few years, I maintained minimal contact, phone calls on major holidays, a brief visit once a year, usually for Christmas. Each interaction reinforced my decision to keep my distance. My parents would spend hours discussing Aaron's career advancement at a prestigious Boston law firm, his marriage to Jessica, the daughter of family friends, and later the birth of their children. The contrast in support became even more apparent when Aaron and Jessica were ready to buy their first home. My parents contributed significantly to their down payment and helped them furnish the place. Meanwhile, they had never once offered to help me with anything since high school graduation. The final straw came at the baptism of Aaron's first son, my nephew Thomas. Despite being the child's uncle, I was seated at the distant relatives table, far from the immediate family section. where even Jessica's second cousins were welcomed. That night in my hotel room, I made peace with a painful truth in my family's narrative. I was barely a footnote. That realization was liberating in its finality. I stopped seeking their approval or recognition. I stopped sharing details about my life. When they asked superficial questions about my work during our infrequent calls, I gave equally superficial answers. Work is fine, busy with projects. They never pressed for details, and I never volunteered them. For 12 years, I maintained this careful distance, showing up just enough to avoid complete estrangement, but never enough to invite real connection. All the while, my parents continued viewing me as the underachieving second son who had settled for a modest technical job somewhere out west. They had no idea that their invisible son was building an empire in silence. My journey to financial success began with a stroke of luck disguised as an entry-level position at a small Seattle tech firm. While the initial salary was modest, the real value was in the experience and connections I gained. Within 6 months, I had identified several inefficiencies in the company's main product and proposed solutions that caught the attention of senior management. By my second year, I was leading a small team developing a productivity app that streamlined workflow management for remote teams. This was in 2012, well before remote work became mainstream. The timing proved fortunate when our little app caught the attention of a major tech company looking to expand their enterprise solutions. They acquired our product for $7 million, of which my share as lead developer was just over $1 million. Instead of buying a flashy car or expensive condo, I made a strategic decision. I invested 70% of my windfall into early-stage startups within my professional network people whose vision and work ethic I trusted. I used another 20% as seed money to launch my own software consulting firm, specializing in financial technology, an industry I had researched extensively and found ripe for innovation. The remaining 10% I kept liquid for living expenses, allowing me to focus entirely on building my business without salary pressure. I rented a modest apartment and maintained a frugal lifestyle, pouring everything into my company's growth. The first year was challenging with endless 18-hour days and the constant anxiety of watching my bank account dwindle while waiting for projects to materialize. The turning point came when my firm developed a specialized security algorithm for processing financial transactions. A mid-sized banking software provider licensed our technology, creating our first steady revenue stream. From there, we expanded, rapidly developing proprietary solutions for wealth management firms, insurance companies, and eventually several national banks. By the 5-year mark, my consulting firm had grown to employ 50 people and was generating annual revenue of $30 million. 3 of my early startup investments had paid off spectacularly, with 1 going public and 2 being acquired by larger companies. My net worth had quietly crossed the $10 million threshold. As my wealth grew, so did my determination to keep it private. I established a complex structure of LLCs and holding companies to obscure my personal connection to my assets. I hired a specialized financial privacy firm to ensure my name rarely appeared on public documents. When I finally purchased my Seattle penthouse overlooking Puget Sound, I did so through one of my corporate entities. My real estate portfolio expanded to include luxury properties in Aspen, Miami, and a small villa in southern France. I invested in restaurant ventures with promising chefs, funded independent films, and continued seeding tech startups with disruptive potential. By my 32nd birthday, my net worth had surpassed $40 million, a figure known only to me and my trusted financial advisors. Throughout this time, I developed a close circle of genuine friends who knew my true circumstances. Among them was Sophia, the owner of a successful contemporary art gallery whom I met at a charity auction. Our relationship evolved naturally over shared interests and values. Unlike the superficial connections in high society circles, Sophia appreciated my desire for privacy and authenticity. She became my partner in both life and philanthropy, helping direct anonymous donations to educational initiatives for underprivileged students. The irony of my situation was never lost on me. While building this empire, I maintained the facade of moderate success during my rare family interactions. I drove a 5-year-old Subaru when visiting Boston. I brought modest gifts for holidays. I deflected questions about my work with vague references to the tech industry and software development. My parents would occasionally offer unsolicited career advice during our infrequent phone calls. "Aaron knows someone at IBM in sales," my father once suggested. "Maybe he could put in a word for you, if you want a more stable career path." Little did he know I had recently declined an acquisition offer from IBM for one of my subsidiary companies, finding their $50 million valuation insufficient. These interactions were both painful and darkly amusing. During one Christmas visit, my mother expressed concern about my retirement planning, suggesting I should start putting something aside each month, even just a little. At that moment, I had just completed a $20 million real estate development deal. The temptation to reveal my success was sometimes overwhelming, but the memory of years of indifference always held me back. Why give them access to a life they never helped create? Sophia would ask, when I wrestled with guilt about my secrecy. You owe them civility as your parents, but not transparency about your success. She was right, of course. The emotional distance I had created was my protection against further disappointment. The privacy surrounding my wealth was not just about financial security, but emotional self-preservation. For years, this arrangement worked perfectly. I built my success in peaceful obscurity while my family continued worshiping at the altar of Aaron's conventional achievements. Then about 6 months ago, I made a small mistake that set in motion the collapse of my carefully constructed separation between my two lives. The unraveling began during a rare family phone call following my father's minor surgery. After the usual superficial exchanges, my mother handed the phone to Aaron, who had apparently been waiting to speak with me. "Hey, little brother," he said with unusual warmth. "We have not talked in ages. Tell me what is new in Seattle." Distracted by an email about a property issue in Aspen, I responded without thinking. "Not much. Just dealing with some maintenance issues at my place in Colorado." There was a brief pause. "You have a place in Colorado. Since when?" Realizing my slip, I quickly backpedaled. "Just a timeshare arrangement with some friends. Nothing fancy." The conversation moved on, and I thought nothing more of it. 3 weeks later, I received an alert from my cybersecurity team about unusual attempts to access information on one of my holding companies. Someone had been making inquiries about ownership structures and financial details. Initially, I assumed it was a routine competitive intelligence gathering effort common in my industry. Then a former colleague called. "Some private investigator has been asking questions about you," she warned. "Wanted to know about your role in the Meridian project and your current business holdings." I did not tell him anything, but I thought you should know. Additional reports trickled in over the next few days. A PI had been investigating my companies, my properties, and my investments. Using my security connections, I traced the investigator to a firm in Boston, frequently employed by Aaron's law firm for background checks. The final confirmation came when I detected and traced an email hack attempt that revealed surveillance photos of my Seattle penthouse attached to a report addressed to Aaron. The subject line read, "Financial Assessment Neville Wilson, Assets and Holdings." 2 days later, I received an unexpected invitation from my parents for a family reunion the following weekend. "It has been too long since we have all been together," my mother's message read with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "We miss you, and have some exciting family news to share." Against my better judgment, but driven by curiosity about their motives, I flew to Boston. The family home looked exactly as I remembered, a shrine to Aaron's accomplishments with minimal evidence of my existence. My mother greeted me with unusual affection. My father actually stood to embrace me, and Aaron was suspiciously attentive throughout dinner. The conversation flowed with forced pleasantness, peppered with unusual questions about my work. "That tech sector must be quite lucrative these days," my father commented casually. "Your cousin mentioned something about you having your own company." Now I provided vague responses while observing their newfound interest. After dessert, as we moved to the living room, Aaron excused himself briefly and returned with a manila folder. "So Neville," he began with a smile that did not reach his eyes, "I think we should discuss the elephant in the room." He opened the folder and spread its contents across the coffee table. Printouts of my property holdings, company valuations, investment portfolios, and bank accounts stared back at me. "You have been keeping secrets," my mother said, her tone a mixture of accusation and artificial sweetness. "All these years we thought you were struggling with your little computer job, and here you are, apparently worth over $40 million. The room fell silent as I processed this ambush. My face remained impassive, despite the anger building inside me. "Why would you hide this from your family?" my father demanded. "We have always supported you, and this is how you repay us, by keeping secrets." The audacity of his revisionist history was breathtaking. Before I could respond, Aaron jumped in with the real purpose of this gathering. "Look, Neville family should help family. I have had some financial setbacks recently. Bad investments, market downturns. Nothing serious in the long run, but temporarily challenging." His voice took on the persuasive tone he likely used in courtrooms. "Given your obvious success, we thought you might want to help your brother out of a tight spot." "What kind of tight spot?" I asked, my voice deliberately neutral. Aaron glanced at our parents before continuing. "I need about $2 million to clear some debts and fund a new business venture. A small amount for someone in your position. An investment in family, really." My mother leaned forward. "You owe this to the family, Neville. We raised you, supported your education." I nearly laughed at the blatant lie. "Supported my education. You told me to figure it out myself while paying for Aaron's Princeton and law school." "That was different," my father insisted. "Aaron needed specialized education for his career path. Besides, it all worked out for you anyway." "Yes," Aaron added smoothly. "And now you have an opportunity to do the right thing. The family has always stuck together." As they continued their practice pitch, the full picture emerged. Aaron's perfect life was built on quicksand. His law career had stalled after he lost a high-profile case. His investment in a friend's restaurant chain had collapsed. He had mortgaged his house to cover trading losses. His marriage was strained under financial pressure. Meanwhile, my parents had co-signed some of his loans and were now worried about their retirement savings. The golden son was tarnished, and suddenly the forgotten second son was their financial salvation. "I need to think about this," I said, finally standing to leave. "This is all rather sudden." "Do not overthink it," Aaron said, his desperation showing through his confident facade. "That is what you always did as a kid. Just step up for once." I drove back to my hotel in silence, their entitlement and manipulation replaying in my mind. The family that had never made room for me at their table now had their hands out, expecting me to serve them. Back in my hotel room, I poured a glass of whiskey and stared out at the Boston skyline. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Aaron and my parents, each more insistent than the last. I silenced it and called Sophia instead. They found out I told her, recounting the ambush and their demand. After listening patiently, she asked the question that cut through my confusion. "What do you actually owe people who never supported you?" That simple question crystallized everything. I spent the night reflecting on family obligation versus self-respect, on guilt versus responsibility. By morning, I had reached a decision that felt right, not just logically, but emotionally. I returned to my parents' house, where they were waiting with expectant expressions. Aaron had brought financial documents, clearly assuming I would simply write a check. "I have given your situation considerable thought," I began calmly. "But before I share my decision, I need you all to understand something about the last 20 years of my life." For the next 30 minutes, I detailed my journey. Working 3 jobs through college, without their support. Building a business from nothing, while they dismissed my career as computer stuff. Creating wealth and meaning while they continued treating me as an afterthought. The most painful part, I continued looking directly at my parents, was knowing that if I had failed, you would have seen it as confirmation of your low expectations. But my success remained invisible to you until you needed something from me. "That is ancient history," my father interrupted dismissively. "Families move forward. The question is what you are going to do now." "I am getting to that," I replied. "I am not giving Aaron $2 million. Their faces fell in unison. Aaron started to protest, but I held up my hand. "Instead, I am offering something more valuable. I will establish college funds for your children, Aaron. They should not suffer for your financial mistakes. The funds will be structured so you cannot access them for any other purpose." "That does not solve my immediate problems," Aaron snapped. "For those, I am willing to pay for comprehensive financial counseling and debt restructuring services. I will not throw money at problems created by poor financial decisions, but I will help you learn to solve them properly." My mother's expression hardened. "After all we have done for you, this is how you treat family." The irony of her statement hung in the air between us. "This is precisely how you taught me to treat family," I responded quietly. With conditional support and clear boundaries, what followed was a barrage of emotional manipulation. They invoked family loyalty, parental sacrifice, and brotherly obligation. My father reminded me of all the advantages they had given me. My mother suggested I was being vindictive over imagined slights from childhood. Through it all, I maintained my position with a calm that surprised even me. When the emotional appeals failed, Aaron resorted to threats about exploring the legality of some of my business structures. I simply smiled, knowing my corporate attorneys were far better than any connections he might have. As I prepared to leave, I offered my final thoughts. "For what it is worth, I forgive you all for the years of being treated as less than. I am not angry anymore. But forgiveness does not mean allowing the same patterns to continue. My offer stands, but with the conditions I outlined. The choice is yours." I walked out of my childhood home feeling lighter than I had in years. 6 months later, Aaron reluctantly accepted the financial counseling to gain access to his children's education funds. My parents alternate between cold silence and tentative attempts to reconnect on my terms. Meanwhile, Sophia and I got engaged last month. We are planning our future around the family values we both hold dear: unconditional support, honest communication, and genuine celebration of each other's successes. I established an educational foundation that provides scholarships for overlooked students, with potential turning my painful experience into opportunity for others. What I have learned through this journey is profound financial wealth cannot heal family wounds, but it can provide the freedom to establish healthy boundaries. True wealth is not measured in dollars, but in relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family who only valued what you could give them? Share your experience in the comments below. If you found strength in my story, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by family approval. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the one you are born into.